Introducing Ashwin as Alexander Hamilton.
Introducing Shriram as James Madison.
Introducing Saad as Maryland in court.
Introducing Atharva as Chief Justice Marshal.
Introducing Colin as McCulloch.
And your host, Jonathan.
Today on March 6, 1819, after the founding of this great country, the United States of America, we'll discuss and find out the true extent of the powers of the federal government. But for all you misinformed Western hillbillies, here's a bit of background information. The national government had 8 branches, each operating in an independent state. This notion threatened the national banks and led to resentment. The bank issued loans in paper currency.
Hello. My main purpose in instituting these separate branches of government for each state is to allow the states to have some authority over their respective affairs, as each state functions uniquely.
Wait! Who are you?
I am the national government. I loan money to states for the funding of private businesses. However, you can always expect a little discrepancy.
However, this led to inflation and the crash of the stock market. In 1811, the bank's charter was closed due to the overempowering of the anti-federalists. In the following years, the War of 1812 deflated the economy. This led to inflation, which because of the overprinting of money. As a result, Madison tried to institute the second national bank to stabilize the economy.
This government loaned money to state and local banks and encouraged the establishment of small businesses. However, due to mismanagement, the federal bank now faced large debt and had to borrow money from the state banks. As a result, 8 states, including us, Maryland, passed laws to limit the functions of the local branches. The Baltimore branch had to pay stamp tax on all currency issued. The National Bank had to pay an additional $15,000 to avoid the stamp tax. This applied only to banks chartered outside Maryland.
James McCulloch, the manager of the Baltimore branch, continued to distribute the bank's notes without applying the stamp tax on the currency. He was then convicted of not allocating to the state's orders and for failing to pay the state tax. He refused to pay the $25,000 fine. He took the case to the Maryland Court of Appeals, which upheld the ruling. He then appealed this conviction to the Supreme Court. The outcome would change the battle between states and federal government for control.
By the powers assured to me in this Constitution of the United States of America, I proceed to declare that I am simply trying to stabilize the economy and market of this republic. However, in order for this to occur, I need the states to work with me in unison.
Today, the Supreme Court will make history and define this social and historical political experiment known as the United States of America, live from D.C.
I declare this court now in session at 5:25 p.m.
Good evening, fellow defenders of liberty. Today is not a case about money. It is not a case about oppressive establishments. It is a case about the rights of these states in these United States of America. This country was founded to escape the tyranny of the British monarchy. It was a holy experiment in which everybody would have a voice in the government. But here, we have a national government that wishes to force a rigid institution upon us. If you know so much about the country, do you know what Jefferson wrote to Mad King George? He wrote about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. How can this government, how can we be free with these institutions?
Order in the court! Order in the court! John Dave, please address the justice.
Sorry, Your Honor. Look, what has this bank done for us? It hasn't done anything. It hasn't saved the inflation from 1812. It's just been seizing bank loans and forcing foreclosures. It's done nothing. This bank isn't good for anything. Ow.
McCulloch is next.
This country was founded as the United States of America. The Articles of Freedom and Confederation taught us that we need a stronger national government. And how's that even going to work if every state is full of its own rice and indigo that thinks it can override the federal law? There's absolutely no reason for me to lose money using the currency of my country. It doesn't matter if you have dinaraki sale or if you have rice swaps. Our government is formed by the consent of the people, and not every individual state. If the state has a problem with the federal law, it has to contest it constitutionally.
Thank you. Yes, sir. According to the Constitution of the United States of America, our argument surely sounds truthful. The federal government, in its main purpose, serves the people under the consent of the governed.
If a state has a problem with federal law and power, it needs to resolve it constitutionally. As Madison said,
Did someone say Madison? Come on, the Constitution is the legal framework. It outlines every governmental action, and we cannot possibly scrutinize every single action we take. We don't even need a Bill of Rights. Read Article 1, Section 8. You can't mess with Uncle Sam. If Daddy Sam says house second bank, you house the second bank.
Hey, that's not fair. I want a sidekick too. Anyway, this government was agreed upon by the state, and we didn't give it this much power. I mean, look, the central government is a perfect conduit of tyranny if it has nothing to do. And nowhere in the Constitution does it say that we can create a national bank. I mean, think about Hamilton.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Wait, who are you?
Alexander Hamilton. I hate Aaron Burr so much. I created the National Bank so that the government would be centralized and that we'd actually get things done. I mean, if each state gets to do whatever it wants, we'll just be a bunch of squabbling chickens for the British wolf to devour. Look at the articles. The states acted independently, and nothing was accomplished, no amendments were made. I mean, I was just trying to create the National Bank to centralize the government and establish economic credibility. But of course, if you don't want to listen to me, as shown by the disbanding of the National Bank, well, I just want to make this country great.
Judge Marshall, we the states gave the federal government its power, and we should be the ones to use it. Hamilton's bank proved to be inefficient and frankly useless. And Maryland needs this tax to stay afloat. It needs to tax the National Bank to stay afloat. Don't the states have any power anymore? The Articles of Confederation may not have worked, but in hindsight, they allowed us states to have some power to serve our people and fix the problems that we have here.
Granted that, the federal government, however, has been instituted to serve the greater good of the people. These individualistic ideologies resent the basis of our whole Constitution, of a united nation under the common cause of promoting the welfare of the people and national unity. This seen, Hamilton's objective in implementing a national government was to centralize the economy and wealth of a united nation for the purpose of promoting national unity. It was an attempt to promote the greater good for the people. In hearing these sentences, my counsel and I have come to a consensus. The federal government will settle the dispute between the states at all times. It will have the authority over commerce and be able to pass laws for the greater good of the nation. Under this clause, the nation will function as a union in correspondence with each other. For the power vested in me in this court of law, I dismiss this case. The court ruled that Congress had the implied powers under the necessary and proper clause to create and run the second national bank. This meant that the National Bank and Congress could levy taxes that could be used for their own benefit. So, in turn, these taxes were used to fund fairly extensive and useless wars, like stationing troops in Vietnam and fighting in jungles against booby traps. The government entered itself into a death wish.
The federal government gained control of the state's finances. The states asserted some domestic control but were not allowed to directly repudiate federal rulings. However, they retained control over domestic small-scale affairs, ergo Colorado legalizing weed.
The case increased the role of Congress and government, as well as made the federal government and the Supreme Court more influential. Also, It increased national unity instead of just small separate states.